Well, the White House has now released an official summary of this visit. It confirms that senior officials, including Kurt Campbell, the Indo-Pacific coordinator of the National Security Council, spent 90 minutes in Honiara yesterday meeting with the Solomon Islands Prime Minister and members of his cabinet. Now, this trip was supposed to be aimed at trying to prevent Solomon Islands from signing this security pact with China, a deal that both Australia and the US fear could lead to Beijing establishing a military base in Solomon Islands, less than 2,000 kilometres from the Australian coast. But of course, that deal was signed in the days before this visit, and so this trip was instead really about trying to limit the consequences. In this official summary from the White House, it says that Kurt Campbell and the rest of the US delegation directly raised concerns about what they described as potential regional security implications. It also went on to say that if steps are taken to establish a de facto permanent military presence, power projection capabilities or a military installation, that the United States would then have significant concerns and respond accordingly. Now, it doesn't go into detail as to exactly what that phrase respond accordingly actually means, but at the same time that the US is issuing this warning in person in Honiara, it's also offering more support for Solomon Islands. It is promising to speed up the process of reopening its embassy there nearly 30 years after it shut down, and it's also pledging more support in terms of vaccines delivery and medical aid. Certainly nowhere near as heated here as it is in Australia. Coming in the middle of a federal election campaign and both major parties pointing to the signing of this agreement to criticise each other. But there have been questions raised as to how the US has handled this. Some suggestion, some people arguing that perhaps conflicts in other parts of the world, issues in other parts of the world have been a distraction, that the United States has perhaps outsourced its relationships in the region to Australia. Now, as I said, the US is reopening its embassy in Honiara. It's been nearly 30 years since it was closed. It's promising to speed up that process. A former US acting ambassador to Australia, James Caruso, says he hopes that the embassy is opened as quickly as possible, but he's argued that it never should have been shut in the first place.
We haven't had an embassy there for a very long time, and that I think in itself speaks volumes. You can't treat a country with neglect or outsource your relationship, certainly not if you want to be an influence in the region without having presence on the ground. So yeah, that was I think a mistake for the United States over a long time.
So that was James Caruso, who is now with the Washington-based Centre for Strategic and International Studies. He says what is important now is that the US and Australia work together to offer Solomon Islands more support.